Chapter 15, Illuminati Secrets for Acquiring Wealth. The High Adept Satanists manipulate people the way that a puppet master manipulates a puppet. The greatest tool that the High Adept Satanists have in manipulating others is greed. Once they inspire an irrational greed into a person, whether or not that person is a Satanist, the High Adepts have their claws into their puppet, and they can make that puppet do their bidding. You can't understand the true nature of Satanism unless you understand that for many Satanists, what draws them to this philosophy is that it can be a path to great wealth. The Illuminati leaders have great wealth. You may wonder how they got all this wealth. Normally, they never reveal their secrets for obtaining such great wealth. I know that many people feel jealousy of these wealthy persons. Many wish that they knew their secrets for wealth. Well, I'm going to reveal those secrets to you now. The Illuminati are the real reason that the wealthiest 1% of society are so much more wealthy than the rest of us. If you've ever wondered how they get their wealth, you should read on. I'm not saying that you should use these techniques. I'm just saying that this is how it's done. I'm a Christian and the Illuminati are Luciferians, so I don't use their methods, but I'm willing to explain their methods to you. So first of all, the Illuminati is an economic system. At one time, wealth was more widely distributed than it is now. But on May 1st, 1776, when the Illuminati was founded, everything changed. Since then, wealth has become increasingly consolidated into the hands of an increasingly smaller percentage of the human race. So let's consider how wealth is distributed around the world at the present time. Things are more extreme than most people realize. According to Credit Suisse, a mere 0.7%, 7/10 of 1% of the world's population controls 41% of the world's wealth, while the poorest 68.7% of the world's population shares a mere 3% of the world's wealth. This global trend is ongoing and is rapidly getting worse. The world is presently ruled by a global plutocracy. Our federal government in the US has committed itself to globalism, and every time a politician uses the catchphrase, New World Order, he or she is pledging allegiance to globalism. So the wealthiest people in the world all believe in globalism. This globalism makes the wealthy wealthier and the poor poorer. The obvious truth is that the only way that this imbalance could exist is if something like the Illuminati did in fact exist. There is a unified collection of secret societies among the ultra-wealthy. These secret societies presently rule the world. This consolidation of wealth is deliberately created. So how do they do it? Well, let me explain. Let me tell you some things about wealth appropriation that were explained to me by Luciferians when I was young. If I had taken their advice and used these techniques, I would probably be a wealthy man today, which I am not. Nonetheless, I have known wealthy Luciferians, and this is what I've learned from them. People who have great wealth realize that knowledge is power, and they don't easily share their most important secrets. They are selfish both with their money and with their knowledge. I've noticed over the years that when billionaires write books, supposedly giving advice to the public on how to become wealthy, they never give you their real secrets. They never tell you how it's really done. But I'm going to tell you now how the Illuminati really create their wealth. First off, know that the ultra-wealthy are not smarter than the rest of us, nor are they more hardworking. Those who inherit great wealth take it for granted and become decadent because of it. The average aristocrat is lazy and lacking innovation when compared to the average middle-class worker. But the Luciferian aristocrats know certain secrets and they lack moral inhibition, and that is how they acquire their great wealth. The most essential of these Illuminati secrets for wealth is something that was explained to me as the Judas principle. To Satanists, Judas Iscariot is a hero, not a villain. He taught Satanism through his example. The Judas principle is to first get other people to trust you, and then when the time comes where there's money to be made in betraying that trust, you betray them. This may sound simple, but it's the foundation of the wealth appropriation philosophy of the ultra-rich. If you study the lives of people like J.P. Morgan, the Rothschilds, and the Rockefellers, you will find that they built their wealth by using betrayal. Persons such as these get business partners to trust them, and then they betray that trust. They also work to create positive public reputations by appearing to be philanthropic, thus gaining public trust, and then they betray that public trust. If you do a deep analysis of the Great Depression, what you will find is that it was an engineered event. It did not come about through accident. The same men who created the Great Depression were publicly respected because of their so-called charity work. But all of that was merely public relations, PR. The wealthy men who engineered the collapse had already sold their stocks and were cash heavy by the time the planned stock market crash took place. Later, as recovery began, they were able to buy up viable companies for pennies on the dollar. The real intention of these super wealthy people is always the Judas principle. There was a movie that came out recently titled The Social Network. It humorously depicts how Mark Zuckerberg betrays his friends on the way to becoming a billionaire. But at least in his case, there was also hard work and innovation involved. But if you think that his betrayal was just that of his friends and co-founders, think again. Consider the fact that Facebook is now an NSA front for spying on everyone who uses it, so this is really a betrayal of an entire society. So this is the secret to becoming a billionaire. You betray everyone. When I was young, it was explained to me how this Judas principle is supported with certain techniques. For example, there are the ABCs of lying your way to wealth. The ABCs are as follows. A. Always tell the truth unless there is some substantial advantage to telling a lie. In this way, people will assume that you're honest. B. Be careful to only tell a lie when you know you won't get caught. C. Cash in on your reputation for being honest only when there is a substantial gain in wealth or power to be achieved. The Judas principle demonstrates how Luciferians profit from being two-faced. Being two-faced is essential to the Illuminati business model. I remember when an older relative explained to me the basic business model of the Luciferian criminal. He said that the Luciferian businessman is both an honest businessman and a secret criminal at the same time. The full-time criminal can't justify his income to the IRS or the police, so he becomes a target for investigation. This is why full-time criminals rarely achieve wealth and why they often wind up in prison. But the clever Luciferian has legitimate business concerns, and he can support those concerns in various ways through criminal actions. For example, when I was young, I knew a Luciferian woman who was an antique dealer. She had a friend and partner in crime who ran a lawn care business that targeted wealthy homeowners. The lawn care workers would scope out these homes for antiques. They would carefully plan out theft of those homes and were selective in what they stole. Then this woman would ship these stolen goods to other states and sell them to upscale antique stores, thus fencing the stolen goods. However, this woman knew which wealthy persons had connections to the Luciferian secret societies and which wealthy persons did not. And so her partners were never suspected by the police because they had legitimate businesses as a front for their criminal actions. But these people were small-time Luciferians. Nevertheless, this sort of thing is done today on a larger scale by international corporations. This is how drug smuggling, human trafficking, and money laundering is done on a huge scale. If you own stock in any international corporation, you probably receive profits from some type of criminal activity. The Illuminati business model of combining legitimate business enterprise with hidden criminal activity is just too profitable. Honest companies can't compete. Then there is the Luciferian art of gaining wealth through looting. Queen Elizabeth did this with privateers. These were really pirates who had been authorized by her to loot the ships of her enemies. These privateers agreed to give her a half share of their plunder. The so-called privateer raised all the money for the enterprise and took all the risk, but had to share the profits. When Captain Drake returned to England in 1580 with his ship filled with pirate loot, the Queen's half share exceeded all her other income for that year. But of course, she tried to keep that fact a, quote, secret of the realm, close quote. These wealthy Luciferians always guard their reputations with lies. This was true in the 1500s, and it's still true. And modern Luciferians understand what Queen Elizabeth understood. Looting is the key to easy wealth. You might consider that such practices no longer take place, but consider what happened just a few years ago with the Enron scandal. Ken Lay got then Governor George W. Bush to sign the electric deregulation law in Texas. This made it possible for Enron executives to rip off millions. They shared the bounty of this ripoff by making huge donations to Bush's campaigns. What you have to realize is that modern American politicians consider the middle class to be their enemy. This is what they really mean whenever they use the catchphrase, New World Order. And if you'd paid attention, you know that all politicians in Washington, D.C., Democrat or Republican, have sworn their loyalty to the Illuminati's New World Order. The politicians in Washington, D.C. authorized the looting of the middle class through deregulation. Then they receive kickbacks from the looters in the form of campaign donations and other favors. So you need to realize that the systematic destruction of the middle class is intentional. It's also worth noting that the Bush family is related to the present-day Queen of England, and this fact is relevant. The leaders of the Illuminati come from the same bloodlines and use the same methods of wealth appropriation as did their ancestors. Another method of wealth appropriation is to sell money at an inflated price. Let's say you need 50 cents in coins to use a payphone, but you only have a dollar bill. If I would exchange 2 quarters for your dollar bill, I'd be selling you money at an inflated rate. Remember the story of Jesus driving the money changers from the temple? Those money changers were selling money at an inflated price. In those days, worshippers were only allowed to make donations at the temple with a certain type of coin. The money changers created a scarcity of those coins and then sold them to worshippers at an inflated price. This is how the Federal Reserve works today. In spite of its name, the Federal Reserve isn't a part of the federal government. It's privately owned and it doesn't operate on the basis of reserves. If you reduce its basic operating process down to simple terms, what the Fed does is that it sells the American people money at an inflated price. It's a total ripoff, and the funniest thing is that the average American is still clueless. You can be certain that the Luciferians who run the Fed are laughing all the way to the bank. These crooks' techniques of wealth appropriation are very old, but they are still being used. And as the saying goes, those who fail to learn from history are condemned to relive it. Now, it should occur to you that for any of these techniques to work, they require an absence of morality. And this absence of morality on the part of the super wealthy is no accident. The children of the wealthy are sent to private schools at a young age. They are socialized throughout their childhood to reject any type of truly ethical thinking. There are various ways in which the super wealthy justify their deceptive, criminal, and immoral behavior. One popular attitude among the wealthiest 1% is that they all believe in some version of what was originally called social Darwinism. What social Darwinism does is to provide a pseudo-intellectual justification for the attitude that might makes right. They believe that the fact that they are wealthier than everyone else is proof of their genetic superiority. They suppose that they don't have to behave morally because they have superior breeding. The term social Darwinism has been rejected by academics, and these days it's rarely used. But the ideas of social Darwinism have found their way into various philosophies which are covertly supported by the Illuminati. You will find the unspoken premise of social Darwinism justifying the ideas of Ayn Rand, Chicago School economics, and neocon pundits. All of these social Darwinist philosophies encourage deregulation and privatization, and such practices allow wealthy Illuminati members to further loot the middle class. As I have just mentioned, generationally wealthy aristocrats are often sent to boarding schools when they are young. This separation from a nurturing mother inhibits the psychological development of empathy for others. Thus, it inhibits the development of a true sense of conscience. So the generationally wealthy are socialized to believe that it's actually good for them to exploit the poor and the middle class. But it's also true that some of the generationally wealthy are Luciferians. I am not saying that every person who inherits great wealth is in a secret society, but in one way or another, all members of the wealthiest 1% are connected to these Luciferian secret societies. Luciferians may be a minority among the wealthy class, but they are an influential minority. Most wealthy non-Luciferians have therefore adapted the attitudes of Luciferianism, whether they consciously realize this or not. Not all of the wealthiest 1% are Luciferians, but some of them are. And the practices of Luciferianism are designed to undo Judaic-Christian morality. I remember my exposure to satanic rituals when I was a child. I remember seeing adults in black robes ritualistically defacing copies of the Bible. Later on, I witnessed satanic rituals in which Satanists would chant verses from the Bible backwards. For example, God is love backwards is pronounced something like Evol si dog. I remember hearing Satanists chanting this over and over. Sometimes they would chant verses from the Bible backwards for hours and go through periods of hysterical glee in doing this. But I never liked these satanic rituals. Also, they would read books that gave intellectual rationalizations for rejecting Christianity. Books like Beyond Good and Evil by Nietzsche. But the rejection of Christian morality is only one way in which their philosophy helps them to appropriate wealth. Ritual magic is another technique that high adept Satanists use to help them get more money. High adept Satanism was developed out of Hermetic teachings from the ancient world. Hermetic philosophy in itself is not high adept Satanism. I would say that this type of Satanism is a distortion or perversion of these Hermetic teachings. Hermetic teachings are derived from pre-Christian sources concerning alchemy, astrology, and ceremonial rituals. The original Hermetic teachings don't necessarily promote demonism, but over time some Hermetic ideas have been twisted into a form of demonism. A ritual is a sequence of actions involving gestures, words, and objects, and this is performed in a sanctified space. The purpose of a ritual is to create a union with a spiritual being. In the Christian communion ritual, this union is between faithful persons and the Spirit of God, the Creator. But in high adept satanic ritual magic, the union is intended to be with demons. And the many high adepts summon these demons to help them to become more wealthy. High adept Satanists use ritual magic to make psychic attacks against other persons. But you can shield yourself from psychic attacks by useful ordinary prayer. Faith in the spiritual creator of all things is powerful. However you conceive the creator, he is your shield against those who manipulate you with psychic influencing. I would suggest that you not discount all the ideas which arise from Hermetic teachings. Advanced physics recognizes quantum non-locality, which can explain how seemingly magical effects can take place over a distance. Ancient Hermetic ceremonial rituals may have utilized this principle of quantum non-locality. Remote viewing and remote healing are modern practices studied by contemporary scientists. Some early Luciferians were alchemists, or you could say proto-scientists. The natural philosopher Isaac Newton was one of these. These alchemists were really heretical Christians rather than Satanists. Although the teachings of Jesus Christ were intended to promote love and tolerance, the medieval Christian church distorted those teachings and it became very intolerant and cruel. Some early Satanists formed secret societies because they didn't want to be persecuted by the intolerant medieval Christian church. It was also this intolerant church that burnt innocent women at the stake as witches. This medieval church also destroyed the innocent Cathars in southern France, as well as the less innocent Knights Templar. And the survivors of all this religious oppression formed secret societies. The Freemasons arose based on some knowledge from these secret societies. Many of the patriotic founders of the United States were Freemasons. For many, even today, Lucifer is a symbol of enlightenment. In a positive sense, Lucifer brings forth hidden knowledge to the world. In this sense, the Statue of Liberty is a Luciferian symbol. However, in a negative sense, Lucifer is the bringer of hidden knowledge to an elite few, and these elite Illuminati members abuse occult rituals to make themselves wealthy at the expense of others. Some contemporary Luciferians use ritual magic to summon demons to help them obtain wealth. In Solomonic type ritual magic, the occultist protects himself from the demon while commanding it to do his bidding. In High Adept Satanic ritual magic, the practitioner seeks to become demon possessed. Whether or not you believe that demons are real entities or merely psychological symbols for repressed negative emotions, demonism is real, and these demons are cruel taskmasters. In some forms of Satanism, there is drug use, sadism, sexual abuse, animal sacrifice, and even human sacrifice. Not all Satanists indulge in such practices, but some do. And most people would be shocked if they knew how widespread Satanism really is. Satanic ritual abuse can be used to create mind-controlled slaves. The blood rituals, torture, and drugs can be used for the purpose of trauma-based mind control. Once they have a mind control slave, they can use that person for whatever they want: sex, assassination, or wealth appropriation. Some ultra-wealthy Satanists brainwash their corporate employees with trauma-based mind control so that such employees will be loyal. There are certain rules that all secret societies operate on. Number one, first, the invisibility of the group must be maintained. For some groups, this means absolute secrecy. Their members are expected to suppress all public knowledge of their group. Second, the members must never reveal to anyone outside the group that they are in that group. Third, all such groups have a hierarchy and their members must obey orders given by superiors. Fourth, there must not be division within the group. Members must not fight with one another. Fifth, a member must not harm any other members. However, it is all right for members to harm any person not in the group. Sixth, a member must be completely honest when communicating to the group's leadership. In spite of such restrictive rules, people still join such groups because there are rewards in doing so. Usually the hope of financial reward is a big motivator. Membership in a Luciferian secret society can be a path to wealth, but whenever a rule is broken, the punishment is severe. An initiated member who breaks the rules may be tortured or even killed, and his loved ones may be harmed if he breaks the rules. And once you are in the secret society, you can never leave. Like the sign says over the gate to hell, quote, "Let all who enter here give up all hope," close quote. Although the Illuminati do have great wealth, I don't think that they're actually happy. I think that many of them are morbid sociopaths. Some of these Luciferian secret societies are really golden cages, yet not all Satanists are the same. Some are quite happy and believe in freedom. Personally, as a Christian, I think it's a bad idea to acquire wealth in the way that the Illuminati members do. But you don't have to be a Christian to be opposed to the Illuminati. I think that all good-hearted people find the Illuminati to be morally bankrupt. I'm not encouraging anyone to join the Illuminati. Even though I'm not wealthy, I'm glad I'm not a materialistic Illuminati member. As the Bible asks, "For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" There is no reason to feel any respect for the wealthiest 1% of society. They are not better than the rest of us. Ordinary people of good heart are the most important people in the world. The wealthy Illuminati are like foolish little children who are helpless to stop their own cruelty and greed. It will be the kindness of ordinary persons that will help humanity to survive the economic tribulation which the wealthy high adept Satanists are imposing on the rest of us. In the end, God the Creator will have the final say. God the Creator loves all persons of good heart, and having a good heart is the greatest wealth you can have. However, Luciferianism isn't just about acquiring wealth for the sake of acquiring wealth. The purpose of wealth is power. What the high adept Satanists seek is to have control over other people. And this is the way things have been since the most ancient of times.